Good morning. Thanks for joining me for this optional session. So today is state testing at SCOA, so I didn't want to leave you guys hanging before your test, so that's why I made today optional. So it'll be worth plus 5 points of extra credit for attending. Yay, we all love extra credit, a little bonus there. We're going to do a quick review of law of sines, law of cosines, and vectors. So what I've done is each unit, they give the teacher what's called a diagnostic, which are sample test questions. So that's what we're going to be going over today. I've picked and chosen a few to do with you. I also shared the PowerPoint with you, so if you're interested in printing that out to write on it, you can do that. Otherwise, just practice on regular paper, that's fine. So to get your extra credit points for today, at the end of the session, I just want you to be answering this question. It just says, what part of Unit 5 did you find the most difficult and why? To earn the extra credit, you do need to answer the question, and please don't say none. Because, even if we find something easy, out of your 3 sections, one of them should have been not as easy as the others. So, which one section was the most difficult? Okay, so let's practice some. A few of these problems have numbers. We sort of jump around a little bit. So if on your paper you just want to label this number 2, then as we go you can sort of refer back to which one of these you thought was the most difficult, and that could be helping you to answer your week 15 question. So in this particular question, they're telling us to use the law of cosines to find our value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label theta A, angle A, and put a little a across from it. And I'll label my other sides B and C, just so that way when we plug it into the formula, it's a little easier to see where we get all of our numbers. So make sure you keep your notes handy that have all of your formulas for this unit on it, because you don't have to have them memorized, you just need to know how to use them. I'll wait just a second. I see you typing. That's funny. Yeah, that's why you don't have to memorize them. You just got to keep your notes handy. So let's go ahead and we'll plug in our numbers here. So since it wants me to find theta, my theta is just my A, so let's plug in our other numbers. So I get 15.2 squared plus 10 squared minus 14.7 squared, all divided by 2 times B times C. By the time we work all of that craziness out, we get that cosine A equals 0.378. So we would choose option C. Okay, so not hard, plugging and chugging into our law of cosines formula. Questions? Check mark, smiley face, whatever you want to do. You good? Excellent. Okay, let's try number 3. Let me cover this up. Number 3 says, suppose a triangle has sides A, B, and C, and that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Let theta be the measure of the angle opposite the side length of C. Which of the following must be true? So let's highlight the key information that they're giving us here. They're telling us that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. What kind of triangle does that make it automatically? If they tell us this formula is true, they're absolutely right. That means it is a right triangle. So let's put it right here. There we go. So we know that that would be A, B, and C. Are we okay with why I labeled the sides the way I did? C is always the hypotenuse, right? So it's always going to be the one across from the 90. Okay, so when I'm looking at my options here, it says the triangle is a right triangle. So yes, that will be one of our options. Now here it says cosine theta is less than 0. Here it says cosine theta is 0. Let's come back up and see which one would be correct. It says let theta be the measure of the angle opposite the side length C. So that means theta is right here. That means theta equals 90. So what's cosine theta? What's cosine of 90? Cosine of 90 is 0. Yep, you're right. So that means this bottom one would be correct, not this one, and not this one. So we just have to use the information that they give us, draw yourself a picture, and then it becomes a little bit more visual. Okay, number 4 says calculate the length of the missing side to 2 decimal places. So here I have a side angle side. So I'm still allowed to use my law of cosines. I'm going to just label these A, B, and C. That way I can get for my formula purposes. So again, A and B can flip-flop places, but C is always the hypotenuse, always across from your longest side. So this time, since I'm solving for C, I'm solving for my missing side here, I'm going to use the formula in the other format. I'm going to use it where it says C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cosine C. So let me give you just a minute for you to try and plug in your numbers on this one. Okay, so this is just a lot of plug and chug using our calculators, working that out. Okay, yep, go grab your calculator. I'll give you a second. All right, so basically this is just a calculator problem. We're going to work all that out on the right-hand side. We're making sure that since this is 125 degrees, our calculator needs to be in degree mode. So everybody check your calculator, click on mode, it's usually in the upper left corner, somewhere in that area, and make sure not radians is selected, but degrees are selected. So by the time we work all of that crazy thing out, we get C squared equals 55,861. But I don't want to know C squared, I want to know C. So the last step would be to square root. To 36.35. What's really cool, a couple things on your scientific calculators is if you plug in this big long equation right here on this step and you get 55,861, if all you do after you have 55,861, if you do your square root symbol, you can hit second and then the minus sign at the very bottom, the little negative sign, and it says ANS above it. If you're using a calculator that is a graphing calculator, if you hit second answer, it pulls your answer back in, which is cool. So instead of you having to retype 55,861, you can hit second answer and it pulls your previous answer into your calculator. So just a little hint and tip there. Pretty cool. Okay, number 6 we've gone over last week too. I just want to make sure you guys know the right answer. It says, what does the law of cosines reduce to when dealing with a right triangle? So if you have the law of cosines, by the time you totally reduce it, it becomes the Pythagorean theorem. That will definitely be a question, so make sure you know that. Number 7, it doesn't give us a picture, but that doesn't mean we cannot create our own. So it says, suppose a triangle has 2 sides of length 14 and 14, and that the angle between those 2 sides is 122 degrees. What's the length of the third side? Let's draw it. May not be a perfect representation, but at least we get a visual going on. So we have 122 degrees in between those two. So we have to ask ourselves, am I going to use law of sines or law of cosines? And in this case, since I just want to know the opposite side, yep, so we'll call that C. we're going to use law of cosines. Yep, you were right. So it's c squared, same equation we did on the last page. A squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. It's pretty much the exact same problem. I just wanted to get you set up with the picture. Yep, you're absolutely right. So by the time you're done, the correct answer is 24.49. So I will let you guys try that on your own. You can always pause the recording, try it, make sure that you're getting that answer. If not, let me know. Just something's going on with where you plugged your numbers in. Okay, number 8 says calculate the side lengths A and B to 2 decimal places. So in this case, I have 2 unknowns. I want to find A and I want to find B. So do we need to use law of sines or law of cosines? Good job. So this one is going to be a law of sines. Remember when we use law of sines, we say this angle is to this side as this angle is to this side. But if I were to set it up right now, I need to know 3 out of the 4 things in order to set it up. I don't know A and I don't know B. So what do you think I have to do first? And Dakota, your perfect answer in there. So it tells me that this side is 5, but I don't know this angle. But you really do, because in a triangle, we know that all 3 of these angles will add to be 180. So that makes my angle C 46 degrees, because it's 180 minus the 108 minus the 26. So now that I know my side C, I can set up my law of sines. I'm just going to quickly give us a fraction here, my proportions. So I can say sine of 46 is to 5 as, and we can just pick one. Let's do our A first. As sine 26 is to A. It's just angle over its matching side, angle over its matching side. To solve, we're going to cross multiply. So I get A sine 46 equals 5 sine 26. Last step, how do you get A by itself? Divide. And this is just a calculator problem. So your A equals 5 times sine 26 divided by sine 46. So your A turns out to be, were you able to try that one? No problem. Okay, so if we just grab our calculators, and I'll do it with you, I'm going to say 5 sine 26 divided by sine 46. And we're going to get 3.05. Already there's only one option that has your A as 3.05, but I still would like you to solve the second part of the problem just to make sure that you did it correctly. Exactly. It's usually harder just to find the first one than the second one. So let's set up our second law of sines. So let's use that same C value up here. We'll use this as one of ours. Sine 46 is to 5 as, now let's do B. Sine 108 is to B. So sine 46 is to 5 as sine 108 is to B. Let's cross multiply and solve, and you should get that B equals 6.61. Yep, so you do get what they got. I just want to make sure that you know it still works the same way. Okay, great job. Law of sines. Okay, number 9. Again, kind of jumping around number-wise. I just picked out a few. Obviously, we're not going to do every question that's on the test, but close. So it says, find B. If necessary, round your answer to 2 decimal places. So in this case, we can do angle is to 10 as this angle is to B. So the key is really just setting it up correctly. Yep, so it's law of sines again. I like law of sines better because it's not as tricky to set up, right? It's just angle is to this side, as this angle is to this side. It's a little easier to set up. Let's cross multiply and solve. Almost done. Yeah, they're not tricky math, that's for sure. So we're going to get B equals 10 sine 81.3 divided by sine 82.2. I only have my rounded answer on my paper, so I'm going to try it with you. So I get 9.977, so rounding to 2 decimal places would be 9.98. How do we do? And if you're not quite getting this answer, a couple things that I would recommend doing is always plug in your whole top first, then hit enter, then type in divide by the bottom. Divide by sine 82.2. So try that again a little bit later, or right now if you have a minute. So type in your top first, 10 sine 81.3, hit enter, then click on divide by sine 82.2. Sometimes when we type in really, really long problems, it doesn't always do order of operations. Does that make sense? So